Hey guys, we're trying out a Zoom conversation with some colleagues from the SBCO. We've got Cassie Pilgrim, our principal oboe of the St. Paul Chamber Orchestra, and Jay Ferree. Am I pronouncing that right, Jay? Because sometimes
That's
people
right.
never. Okay, it's not like Ferree.
Right.
Okay, is our principal horn. Of the SBCO. And you guys came in same year, right? Same season? No,
I was year before.
year before Cassie.
Mhm.
So we talked about having a conversation like this just to kind of check in with each other in what is clearly a really strange time and also it's just kind of sad that we don't get to play with each other live anymore. We've done some Bluetooth things, but curious how you guys are doing these days, especially around the holidays, Thanksgiving holidays.
You can go first, Jay. You've had more movement and excitement than I have. I think.
Yeah, well, I don't know, I guess my holidays will be a lot like a lot of other people's, which is not doing much, for Thanksgiving. Um, so my wife's in Virginia and I'm here in St. Paul. Um, yeah, I was just kind of waiting about, what our next concerts are going to be, and um, yeah, over the weekend I was asked to do the host material for our live stream. Not a live stream, but our rebroadcast of previous concerts. So that's hard. That's hard stuff. So that kind of took up my weekend. Having to rearrange all the furniture in my apartment to try to, get a good looking scene. I've got blank white walls everywhere. So that was kind of fun. You know, putting up anything I could to get a little better acoustics for speaking. I turned my apartment upside down just to make these videos.
Oh, man. I'm excited to watch it.
What's that, Steve? I can't hear. You're
Steve,
muted.
you're muted.
Oh, sorry. Have you played any concerts, Jay, since the pandemic started, since March?
No.
You haven't, not even recorded. You haven't.
Nothing.
Yeah. And what
Yeah,
about you, Cassie?
My Brahms trio was canceled that week. So
Right.
Yeah. The only thing that I've done, anything that I've actually done for SPCO has been canceled, including.
What about outside of SBCO?
Well, we had that recording in California that we did over the summer.
Can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure.
Yeah.
If anybody's watching who's there, hey. It was really fun. We were supposed to go to Festival Mosaic, which is Scott East Festival over the summer, and that got canceled due to the pandemic. So in lieu of that, they just had everybody come and stay each in their own hotel room, socially distanced, and masks and all that kind of good thing for this kind of really clever recording session where if you watched it, the show being Now Hear This on PBS, they styled it in a way where you can't even, they don't address the pandemic and using clever shots. You can't tell that we're seated 6 feet apart. And a little bit of background thing here. If you watch the episode, you'll see that there's it's supposed to take place over the course of a week. And there's this big performance at the end of it. And I don't know if I can expose this, but we were only there for a day and a half, So they really, it was kind of fun.
Well, wasn't it? And that was back in June.
July.
That's one of two things. Only two, even rehearsals or community musical events that I've done since March, other than a little concert on my porch in the summer. And I just remember doing that having that first rehearsal in California, just sitting down with people, and what a strange experience. How nice it was, even though we were all masked and distanced, and it's just like, so I was just thinking about this conversation, like, how is it's going to be, how is our perception of what we do, and like how we practice, and how we're going to function on stage in front of live human beings? Is that all changing, or is it gonna snap back right away, or is that like a muscle that we need to like retrain once we're in front of, like, not just video cameras?
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, the whole self-awareness is going to change. Yeah, because we're always playing and so distraction-free in our own homes. Except for those of us who have kids, maybe. Those of you who have kids.
I don't know what you're talking about.
but yeah, when there are suddenly people there, you have to acknowledge that there's like that part of your brain that's suddenly activated, and
Right.
then turn it off, and get back in the music.
But doesn't it change also what you guys practice? And if you are practicing, no judgment, but if you are practicing, what are you practicing? Because I find that I feel like I'm in like a laboratory, like an isolated laboratory where there's no particular goal except getting better at certain little things. And but so much of what we do professionally is preparing efficiently for a performance, and we don't have very many of them anymore. So
Yeah.
it fascinates me a little bit, like how our brain changes in that way.
Yeah, I think like going back to, like you said, when we first rehearsed back in California over the summer, and yeah, like kind of like you said, as soon as we started playing, and it was like, and that would only been a few months into quarantine and everything, so it hadn't been nearly as long as it is now, but I was a little taken aback. And after a couple rehearsals, I was like, oh, this is what it's supposed to feel like playing music with everyone's amazing. And then we had to go home. So I was kind of like immediately depressed after that, because kind of entering back into it and then having to quit so immediately after that was tough. And sort of a similar thing with a few weeks ago, getting to rehearse with everyone back at SPCO again. And ultimately not performing, but just the rehearsal of it was really invigorating in a way, because I realized how much of my, identity as a musician and what I love about being a musician is so wrapped up in other people, whether it's performing with them or for other people. So that's what's hard too, because I think, and I don't think it's a bad thing, because I think it naturally is meant to be, it's, contingent on the gathering of people and sharing. And I think that's, in terms of performing, I hadn't realized so much until now, how much performing really meant to me in terms of just like, well, the catharsis and the purpose of music for me, because especially I'd like to be one of those people that sitting alone in their apartment and it's like, I'm gonna play the most beautiful music I've ever done today just for me, because I'm like, whatever,
The reed of all reeds today.
I mean, no. Yeah, I think the thing is with music is sharing and playing and expressing, performing is all about, I think, conveying my emotions to someone else, being vulnerable with other people and showing them what's going on. But I already know all my emotions all too well, so I don't need to constantly be sharing it with myself. You know what I mean?
Sorry to interrupt. Even the the little bit done, it's a challenge, because I still feel with a mask on and 6 feet away and all the precautions that we're taking, it puts you in a little, first of all, they're a little disorienting, maybe less for you guys because you play wind instruments and you're not actually don't have them on while you're playing. But for me, it's you just kind of just like got to block it out of your mind once you get used to it. And perhaps I'm more neurotic than some, but
Yeah. So much of what we do is being able to read other people's faces and their actions and knowing what's going to come next. And
that's hard. You can't see the classic Steve face anymore either.
Right.
Oh no!
Looking
I don't
over.
want to know.
If you did that,
Oh, thank you.
and then that's covered up, I have to see it all in your eyes.
Well, and funny, one of our colleagues, Julie Albers, was saying at rehearsals, it's like, I can't read anything from the bottom half of your face. I was like, maybe that's a good thing, you know. Well, you know, hopefully we all get back to doing something soon. This is a hard time. What are you practicing in the practice room? Like, what kinds of nerdy things are you guys doing? Or if that, or are you learning new stuff? Or are you just kind of taking it easy?
I have a split answer to your
Be
question.
honest.
A split answer. Two answers.
Okay.
First answer, I totally identify with what you were talking about with the laboratory. You know, because doing a job kind of feels like being a starting pitcher in Major League Baseball. You know, you've got your big start every week, and you're sort of pacing yourself up to that moment. And so much of what we do, physically, mentally, and the way we use our time leading up to those performances matters. You know, certainly for us brass players, it's a very physical event. And the way we practice, what we practice affects our sound first, and just so many other things. So suddenly having those weekly starts taken away, so to speak, it changes everything. It's less a result-based kind of work. It's more process-based, which is nice. It's really nice to be able to do that and to focus more on those little exercises. I do a lot more technique these days.
That's what I find that I'm doing a lot of that, but I also worry about it because it's just I'm going too down into the depths with stuff like that, and that when I actually get into a real situation, you're like, ah!
Well, I try to balance that out with just playing along with recordings. Sometimes it's things I'm expecting to play. Sometimes it's things I probably won't play for several years. But just, you know, learning new music, and just feeling the flow of a piece, and enjoying listening to music again too.
Right.
Not just you know, that's work related. It's just, hey, I kind of want to learn this piece, or I haven't really checked this one out. It's been on my list.
Right.
So we have
what pieces? What name a couple of those?
Well, I'm a horn player, so like certain Mahler symphonies, I haven't done yet. Or, I mean, there are a couple. There's so many Haydns that I haven't played yet. So going through some of those, they're so quirky and fun.
What's the super nasty one that's super high? Is it 50, 51, 50? I can't remember.
Is there just one?
Well, there's one in particular I know. But what about you, Cassie? What are you?
Well, I didn't get my second answer yet.
Oh, sorry.
The second answer is
Star Wars.
It's been so nice that if something comes up in life, to be able to take care of that, to do that, and not be like, oh, sorry, I have to practice. You know,
right.
so much of the musician lifestyle is really demanding. The horn is a high maintenance girlfriend, and she starts yelling if you don't pay attention to her. But it's
you just
really
got
nice.
it. You just got a look from your colleague in the wind section.
If the horn is a high maintenance girlfriend, I don't know what the oboe is.
Well,
The
I'm
oboe,
married now,
the
so the horn
oboe's
is
the
now
girlfriend.
an ex-girlfriend. But
Yeah,
but
I won't go there.
yeah, it's so nice to be able to put it aside and say, hey, everything's going to be okay. I'll come back to you later, but I have this right now.
Right.
And it feels great to have a break, and I'm really itching to get back to playing now. But this,
Right.
yeah,
It's a good reset time. Like,
yeah,
I mean, I don't think any of us can. I mean, I certainly can't name a period in my life where I've had this amount of time to, it's just it's a strange time. It's more time with your family, more time with your instrument, more time. And it's just, it changes your relationship with time too, which is a pretty big part of what we do. But Cassie, you were saying what you may or may not be working on the oboe these days.
Well, I've practiced 8 hours a day since March, so I don't know what you guys are on about, but
Right.
I've no, I think we've been in this quarantine and for so long that I think without a solid end goal in sight, it's hard, kind of what Jay was saying, to kind of budget your time and emotional energy towards something in practice, because I can't, you can't like give your all at least for me, every day and not know what the end goal is there. I think for that, like I said, performing is a big part of that, to kind of like work towards something. The smaller goals are really helpful for me. So that in quarantine, the little things that I did have to do, like the rehearsals that we had or the performances that were slated that got canceled, that was sort of like my focus. And I would kind of surround myself, maybe work on some etudes to kind of get myself back into intonation or whatever, but that was kind of the focus. And now I'm back again, sort of just trying to come up with things. Like, there's only so much solo oboe music out there. Well, there's actually a lot, but a lot of it, understandably, just playing a lot of Baroque music or whatever, But I think it's, I can't really imagine another time in my career where I have kind of this sabbatical, we'll call it, where, I'll take advantage of that rest. And even now, with no really big obligations, I'm aware of how I'm constantly haunted, like a little bird on my shoulder or something, just being like, you have to practice your oboe. And I'm like, stop, I don't have any performances in 3 months. But it's like, you have to. And it's something that's haunted me, I guess, ever since I started, which is kind of funny to kind of realize how you can't even escape it, even amidst like a big break. But I don't know, I think I think by the time when we come back, I will obviously be very happy to perform and play with people again, but it'll take me a while to kind of get back into just feeling normal about it. I think I live by myself and I have my cat, so being isolated and kind of making music by yourself in this little vacuum is very strange. And it's hard maybe to not have any goalposts to kind of bounce off of and see if I'm keeping up. So but when we do come back and you hear me again, spare any weird looks. That's all I can ask, I guess. We'll see.
Yeah.
I think everybody's going to be so grateful to be back when we're together, and especially when they're live audiences again. I think those little things in music, those little mistakes, are going to be glorious.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
I don't think anyone's even. That's not going to be what it's about,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Okay, sorry.
I was going to say, it's hard to know when. Obviously, no one knows anything just yet, but a lot of good news on the horizon. But like when we start, what form will that take? Is it are we gradually going to ease into something, or but I don't want to dwell on the pandemic too much. But I think what you said about being grateful, that's, I think that's I know for me, going to change. That's going to change something. I hope it will change something when I'm on stage and in front, and like, oh, like this is not just about, you know, nailing this. And I mean, hopefully I wasn't doing that before, but like that there's more conscious awareness of what we came out of, and there more attention to all kinds of things, you know, how we, you know, our obligation to kind of respond to each other, and like that it can be taken away like that. You know, it's just like you're isolated. Have you guys been doing any, I mean, I know Jay, you arrange and compose stuff. Have you been doing any of that, or improvising? Anyone improvising or doing anything different in music?
The Goldberg project took probably 4 months. It's infuriating, really, to think, you know, how quickly Bach probably wrote the Goldberg variations, and then how long it took me to arrange it for Chamber Orchestra. Yeah, so that was done with that in July, and so wiped out. I took a break, but I've just gotten back to arranging again. I'm doing some more Mendelssohn songs without words.
Oh, nice.
Sort of, you know,
for solo horn?
No, well, a couple years ago I did the Wind Nonettes with a couple Mendelssohn songs without words and a Fanny Hensel piece. So I want to add more to that collection. They're just really nice. I'm working on one right now that's full of unmistakable horn calls. so I'm working on that right now.
Nice. And what else have you guys been doing? Forget about the horn and the oboe. Like, what are there any, like, I mean, has the time allowed you to do more of other things that complement your professional lives, or?
Yeah. Well, I'll add one more thing back to the kind of oboe thing, kind of what we're talking about. It's kind of funny because I feel like I just only recently kind of started my career, and now sometimes I feel like I'm retired. Like, well, maybe I'll crack it out today and toot around. Who knows? It was just like, you know, but that's kind of nice to kind of play purely for your pleasure at times. And I think like what you're saying, I will be so much more grateful when we return, not just to like, because I missed everyone, which I do, but something about the kind of unspoken element of beautiful music that already is so like emotionally provoking when we do it all the time. Like, you know, I don't actually listen to that much classical music in my free time. If I'm driving or something, I'll listen to anything that's like, you know, ABBA or funk or Motown or whatever, you know, and then so I think some part of it might just be sort of a survival technique, because I just for the heck of it, I listened to some beautiful oboe playing, my old teacher, Mr. Woodhams, a couple of weeks ago, just like some recording, and I started crying as I was, because I hadn't listened to something like that in a while, and I was like, oh my gosh, I really miss it. And just remembering the way how beautiful music could be, I was like, okay, I have to tuck that away and just save it for later, because I can't be like missing it so actively all the time. So, you know, the little things you do to get by, and I kind of manifest that denial in like watching a lot of movies, and I've been knitting a lot.
What movies? I need some movies.
Well, you know, I watched The Godfathers and some more.
You didn't watch number 3 though, did you?
No, not yet. I don't know.
Okay,
I just don't feel like it.
Don't bother.
See, everyone that I've talked to has said the same thing, so I just feel like, why bother?
Don't bother. What about you, Jay?
Yeah.
Our garden.
Are you a movie watcher?
Not really.
Really?
To watch some shows. I think the number one show of the pandemic for me was Madam Secretary.
Oh, okay. Little politics. Are you a poet?
Well, it's a surprisingly uplifting political show. So,
right.
Yeah.
It's funny you mentioned that, because with all the, I think we had an election a little while ago, but with all the run up to that and just being obsessed with all of that, I just decided I gotta get, like, this is driving me nuts. I can't keep. And then, of course, I started my 3-week journey of watching The West Wing all over again, where everything's like, da, da,
Just watch
da,
House of
da.
Cards, everything. It just
Yeah. Well, but
Uh,
West Wing always like leaves you like, oh, like it's all gonna be. I don't know.
yeah. Well, I've never watched so much traditional media in my life, like the week of the election, like just hours watching the news. And so I haven't really spent that much time watching it on the couch like I had a few weeks ago, you know. But before that, some good shows. Have you seen Fleabag on Amazon? I was like, I watched it in like one day.
A little
So
bit.
good. Some other things. I've been watching Hannibal. Have you seen that? It's like
Wow.
very disgusting, but
Cassie,
so
we need
good.
to have a talk.
I know. If you knew the kind of stuff that I was like Googling after watching that show, you probably wouldn't want to work with me.
Don't. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, but let me just say, real life accounts from cannibals. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna finish
Not
this.
so good. Yeah.
No, it's actually that's the upsetting thing is that everyone kind of has pleasant reports back. I don't know why that's worse. Anyway, let's move on.
Well, with kids home a lot, I get to sample a lot of kids shows, and if you've never seen it, even if you don't have kids, it can be very entertaining. It's an Australian show called The Octonauts. It's fantastic, and you're gonna love it, and you're gonna be singing the theme song. I'm
Can
sure.
you sing it? What's this?
Well, there's a. It's each show is about it's like a bunch of characters, and it's all about the ocean and sea creatures and things, and some of them have Australian accents. They have great accents for each character, but after they've kind of learned they've learned their thing about the dolphin or the manatee or whatever it's going to be, they have the song goes, creature report, creature report, creature report. Anyway, we won't go there.
Jay, can you arrange something like that for
No.
SPCL? Okay.
What about cooking?
Too complicated.
Eating, cooking, drinking? Because I know I've been doing a lot of those three, and I love cooking, and it's like I need to have a project every day for cooking, and I don't want to take up all the time, but I could go for hours about all the things I've cooked the last few months.
What's some like things you're proud of?
What's your dish?
Well, that's the thing. There's certain, I'm not a fine chef or anything, but I think I can follow a recipe and I kind of know my way around. But there's certain things you cook when you just want something easy and you know exactly how it's going to come out. Like, and with a family, you want to make stuff that'll last a few days. Penne alla vodka, I make sauce. Fantastic. But like, I'm curing a 5-pound piece of pork belly in my refrigerator, which is like, I've never done that before. It'll take 2 weeks, and then you use it for like different pastas and things. And I don't know. I love doing it. And cocktails. I've been making lots of cocktails at a certain time of day. So what about you guys?
1 hour. It's cocktail.
Are you cookers?
I'm the sous chef of the house. So So when I'm alone in St. Paul, our meeting now has unlimited minutes. That's nice.
Wow. Thank you, Zoom.
So yeah, we can have a 10-hour long.
Let's do it.
Yeah. I'm the sous chef in the house, so when I'm here in St. Paul, I'm a little helpless. But my sous chef skills have gotten a lot better when I'm in Richmond, following orders. And my instincts are getting better, just like the kinds of portions to use for things, what flavors balances out what.
Mm-hmm.
I'm usually in the vicinity when my wife is watching her cooking shows. So I tend to, they're really fascinating. I used to hate cooking shows, but they're really fascinating now.
Oh, cooking shows and woodworking shows like this, like shows about fixing old houses. I just go like, especially the woodworking shows, because I know I'm never gonna do any of that. I'm never gonna try. I'll probably cut my hand. But
You're working a different kind of wood, several hours a day.
I'm just right. I'm just fascinated with those guys. Just like I don't know. I don't know. Just sit there and yeah, kind of like the Great British Baking Show. Just kind of sit and stare and like all is well with the world. There's nothing. There's no drama really. It's just like
Let's go to the British Baking Show. It's so calm, and they're like, oh no, I've dropped me crumpet on the floor. Like, it's so calm, but then American TV shows, it's like,
it's so different from what we do.
Gordon Ramsay. Yeah. Well, not in a way. Everything kind of has similarities, but I don't know. Unfortunately, I am the head chef in my own house. Unfortunately,
what do you cook? Do you cook? You're half Chinese, and you must have eaten a lot of Chinese food growing up. No?
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like my grandma. I wish I knew so many more of her recipes, because old Asian grandmas or most grandmas, they don't have anything written down. They just like eyeball it. So at my request, sometimes she sends me some videos of her cooking, and I can kind of like see how much it's in this grainy video, how much she's dumping in.
She's still cooking for herself. She's in her 80s. She's
90. She's 90 this year.
Wow.
Yeah, but she's still cooking. Amazing. And she's right with it. So I don't know. Every time I try to recreate some of these dishes, as simple as they may be, it's just not quite the same, But hopefully by the time I'm 90, it's somewhat similar. Something that I haven't tried yet, but maybe I'll do that for like the holidays or something, is try to you salt a duck and you leave it in the fridge for a couple days, and then you boil it with like herbs and everything. Yeah, like a whole duck. Just stuff like that. But I think I'm paired. I like cooking, and I'm not a bad cook. Like I enjoy the flavor of the food and everything, but I also am imbued with the hatred of doing dishes immediately. So as soon as I cook something, it's like I need
it's
I wish my
just a necessary evil of cooking. It's just gotta like what about cocktails?
Wonderful.
You guys like cocktails?
I'm not as gifted as you are. I'll leave you to that.
I never was into it. I had no idea what I was doing, but I don't know, something about not seeing your neighbors, not giving hugs, not having Thanksgiving with family. It makes you want to have some cocktail.
Yeah.
and they're quite fun to make too, and even more fun to drink. I started to make lots of different kinds of Negronis.
Let's walk us through what's your favorite cocktail?
I made one last night called the Jasmine, which was very good. It packed a little more punch than I was expecting. It's gin and Campari and I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, but Cointreau. It's like a little orange liqueur with chilled over ice. Yeah, very yummy.
Nice.
Yeah.
But Jay, have you been making more of your I don't know, what are they called? Tipsy milkshakes or whatever?
Yeah, the
tipsy milkshakes.
I don't know what you call it.
Yeah, I don't know if they have a name, but yeah, it's just ice cream, a little something special, and milk. Trader Joe's ice cream though was really the key ingredient, because
what was it?
Trader Joe's ice cream. Just something about their chocolate or their vanilla. It's just really good ice cream.
Have you guys made your own ice cream?
I have in the past,
sounds
but
dangerous.
You have a
I don't know.
machine?
You cook it in a pan first, and then you put it in a machine and then you kind of leave it in the freezer for a little, and it's not very hard. Not very hard. I thought maybe we could kind of wrap up a conversation by maybe nerding out a little bit again, and kind of showing each other what kind of instruments we play and showing our audience. Tell us something about the instrument and where it was made and how you maintain it and what you love most about it. You guys have your instruments close
I'll need
by?
to go get it. Yeah, it'll take a
I
minute.
can go get it. Yeah.
Okay.
Should we?
Yeah.
It'll take me like. Let's see how fast I can get back.
Okay. Well, while these guys are getting their instruments, I'm gonna take mine out here. This is one of two violins. This is one of two violins I'm lucky enough to have by the maker in Brooklyn, Sam Zakovich. And this is the most recent one I have. Was made in 2020. It's a copy of it's kind of a Guarneri inspired violin, as opposed to the Strad inspired one that I have, that I'm lending to a friend in the orchestra. It is a beautiful instrument. It's a lot of new instruments are antiqued and kind of made to look old. This one is not on purpose. If anyone has seen the Messiah Strad, it's a violin that it lives. I think it's in the Ashmolean Museum in the UK, and it looks like a brand new violin that's Strad made. And there's a lot of conjecture whether it was really made by Strad, but it is, and it's amazing how it looks, just brand new. This is the sign of the golden mean that Sam put on with India ink and gold leaf. And also something special, which I didn't even know about, and this is a very nerdy thing, is special. These are called F-holes. And as you can see, normally these just wrap around like this, but these are called chevron F-holes. You can see they're cut in an angle there and an angle there. I don't know. Can you guys see that?
What does that accomplish?
I think it's more a decorative thing, although Sam might say that it has some sort of tonal function. Not really sure. I probably should find out, but I mean, yeah. And
did you have a say in the finish of it? If it was it made for you?
Not this one, but the other one, because this one was kind of, he had made not thinking he was going to sell it. And so it was ready at the time that we were talking about the other violin that he was going to make. So this was already done. The other violin that I had made in 2014, we talked about everything about it. Like, did I want it antique? I also have a little tattoo on the back of the other one. There's a little maple leaf, maple tree seed pot, because the back of the fiddle is made of maple. Anyway, and I have a really beautiful old French bow, but not quite as. I can show that later. But why don't you guys, now that you have yours out?
Oh, I feel like we're at rehearsal.
Are you gonna cry, Cassie?
No. Maybe
you give the A?
Comment.
Can you give the A?
Yeah. Well, I can go next, unless Jay, you feel so inclined.
Go for it.
But here's my oboe. It is a Lorraine Royale with an 8K bore, which sounds like a bunch of words, but the Lorraine brand, maker of oboe, is arguably the most popular, at least historically, in the United States. And actually, that's kind of the only place where it is really popular, because of just the tradition of it. And for some backstory, when Marcel Tabitha came over to the United States in the early 1900s. He came and then eventually became the principal oboist of the Philadelphia Orchestra and the first teacher at the Curtis Institute of Music, and had a whole tradition started kind of in Philadelphia where I went to school and Steve went to school also. And so it's really cool to be part of.
I interject for just 2 seconds. There's a little funny story. This is a funny story. We both know going to Curtis, there's a tableau room, but you may not know that my teacher, who just passed away last year, I believe, Aaron Roseanne, who I think he graduated in 1948 or something. But tableau he always mentioned tableau as for his phrasing system, and for, I guess he must have been a huge influence, because I think he actually led a lot of the string sectionals. And I was just curious that a violin teacher had such, was profound influence from tableau. Anyway.
Yeah. No, I think definitely it's not so much even the oboe tradition, but I think a large part of the Philly and Curtis tradition and everything in general has a large part due to him. And he had a very, distinct lineage of students. And so I'm grateful to be part of that. And of course, there's great oboists all over the world, and there's no boundary lines for like great music making or anything like that. But in terms of the style and everything, that's sort of what led me in the tradition to kind of end up favoring this particular instrument and just the sound it can produce, the style of reed making and playing and all that. And I got this 4 years ago, and the lifespan of an oboe is not quite like violins or other instruments. Something about blowing moist air into it for years makes it less prone to lasting forever, I think. But so I probably should actually get a new one eventually. So
4 or 5 years is the lifespan of a good oboe?
Sometimes people get them all the time, just depending. I mean, if it still plays well, so that's why I haven't really been so motivated to find a new one. But it's hard. It's also hard to find one that really, same with every instrument, to like really matches what you want to go for. But yeah, I've been playing now for 14 years, and I started when I was 10 years old, and it appealed to me because it was such a weird little instrument that everybody was like, oh, it's too hard, you should play something else. And I was like, don't tell me what to do. But it is very hard. I wish I had listened, but I don't look back, because I really do something about, despite all the struggles with the instrument, and maybe people, if you're wondering why does everybody say the oboe is so hard, I think truthfully it is about 90% of it is the reed making, and having to kind of produce 90% of the sound and the essence and intonation and everything just in the top millionth of the instrument here. That's what's hard for me personally, and just sort of the endurance of it. But if you can kind of untap that magic little window of beautiful sound and expression and singing, then that's what makes it all worth it, and why I've stuck around for as long as I have.
I know violins are generally made of the same types of wood on the parts of except for some of the little accessories, but oboes I know are made out of totally different types of wood. There's grenadilla.
Yeah, this is grenadilla. I mean, I think for the most part, that's not necessarily true. Like, I think even like the World Wars and stuff, you could find oboes from back then made of like, you can find parts of oboes made of propeller wood, just kind of reusing stuff. So you can make an oboe out of anything, but I think the most favored woods are these really dark, dense woods. This is like, actually, I don't know if it's endangered yet, but rosewoods and stuff, which are endangered, the kind of really dense woods. And I think grenadilla actually used to be used as ship ballast or something, because it's so dense that it won't float. So they use it to like anchor ships, something like that. I might be getting it wrong, but that's kind of what this guy is. Very dense, heavy, dark wood. And it does have a large effect on the sound quality, I think, if you change the woods. Not some different woods have slightly different qualities, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
And for bows, it's the same thing. Almost exclusively, unless you're buying a carbon fiber bow, bows are made out of wood called Pernambuco, which is extremely endangered, and people have been stockpiling it for years. But and I don't know enough about it, but I assume because it has a certain density, but it's also extremely flexible.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't really know any other. It's like violins are maple and pine, and ebony for a lot of the fixings, sometimes other things, and bows are Pernambuco, and that's basically. We'll have to get an oboe maker and a violin and horn maker on here sometime.
Well, I think, Jay, forgive me, I think it's like, I'm trying to remember what I remember of horn from being in school and stuff, but are there silver horns or parts of it that are made from silver? That's what I thought.
Sure.
But yeah, can you talk
What
about
type is yours, Jay?
So this is yellow brass. I mean, all horns are made up. They're alloys, combinations of different metals. Typically copper, tin, aluminum, bronze, silver, whatever. Just different combinations of percentages of each metal create that alloy. And then sometimes you could have a yellow brass horn and then you plate it with silver. So it essentially it looks like a silver horn, but actually it plays like yellow brass. Because
that aesthetic,
the plating is so thin and minuscule, it won't really affect the sound very much. Or you can some people plate their horns in gold.
Does that change the sound? I mean, are these aesthetic effects or acoustic effects?
Aesthetic mainly. I mean, a good technician can plate really thin. Some metals are easier to work with than others, but basically the thicker the plating is, then the heavier the horn is, and that will affect the sound. It affects the response, the quickness of the response. It gets a little slower with the more weight.
What about the mouthpiece? What's the mystery about the mouthpiece?
So I don't actually think the material matters that much unless you're allergic. Some people are allergic to, I think nickel or silver or something. So they'll play with a gold mouthpiece. Not good when your lips have an allergic reaction to what you're trying to play with for hours a day. But other than that, I mean, there are so many different dimensions to a mouthpiece. There's the width of the rim. There's the shape of the rim, like is it square or is it round or combination of those, just different angles. And then there's the cup inside, both the shape of it, typically it's either a U shape or a V shape. Then there are different depths of both of those, and the way it tapers.
And they all must have
into the back.
They all must change the sound, or the is it mostly for the ease of playing, or does it actually control the type of air that you get in the instrument?
Yeah, all of those. And I don't know that there's actually a proven scientific method for finding out what works best for you. It's just a lot of trial and error, really. And in the end, for myself, I've narrowed it down to about 2 factors. Finding the right mouthpiece. It's just, number one is the feel.
You have to feel comfortable.
Yeah, especially with the rim. And the second is the air. How does the air feel going into your horn? Is it doing what you expect it to, what you want it to do? Or is it inhibiting you? Is it too resistant? Is it too free? You just have to find the right balance. And all the different factors and tapers and dimensions will affect what the air does. Some will be better for a high range, some will be better for a low range. You just need to find what you're looking for, which is usually going to be a well-balanced mouthpiece that can play high reasonably well, play low reasonably well, but you still have to practice to achieve all of those. You're not gonna, there's no silver bullet, you have to practice. Yeah.
But
So,
for all of us, I'm sure, like, we'll have a bad weather day or a bad read day or a bad mouthpiece, whatever, or something. We also have to train ourselves to like not mind anything, right? I mean, there's a certain, which makes it, as you get to be a better player, I think it sometimes makes it more difficult to pick what you like better, because you're so trained to like adjust to make it, to make your not so good sounding playing the way you want, and no matter what. And I know and I'm curious, I have to go in for adjustments once in a while, and instruments need a lot of, you need to have maintenance, and you need to change your strings, and often when the weather changes, there's big problems. I don't know if it's the same kind of thing with the horn, or if you ever, how often do you need to see a horn technician? Like, when was the last time you...
It should be regularly cleaned. I clean it pretty often myself, maybe every 6 months, 6 to 12 months myself.
Okay.
But it's good to take it in to get a professional cleaning to just take care of, all things that build up inside, corrosion and all that.
Like once a year or something?
Yeah, ish.
Like once a year or something?
So something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And what about you, Cassie? You have to take your oboe in to get tweaked?
Yeah, it's so finicky. You can see how many little screws, and even if one of these is off by a half turn, especially up here or something, might not even be able to play any notes in the lower register or anything like that. So it is super, and that's why, you have to really trust the person that you're taking it to, and have a good knowledge of what it feels like, what you want it to feel like. And I have a lot more to learn there, but I'm lucky because Barb, our second oboist, is quite knowledgeable with that kind of stuff. So there's been many a time before a concert where I'm like, help me, and she'll kind of save my life there. So there's little moments like that, and maybe at least a couple times a year I'll want to have it, take it in or send it in to someone that really knows what they're doing, and kind of make it in best playing shape possible. But it's funny that you say that with like the adjusting to things, and because it reminded me, my teacher, Mr. Williams, he would say sometimes you have a bad read or a bad day, he'd be struggling or something, kind of feeling bad, and then people would come up to him and give him more compliments than he was expecting, because something about having to struggle, and I felt that before, where you're having a bad day, so you kind of just think, screw it, and just play with kind of a fury and passion behind it. You're kind of fed up, and then people kind of notice, wow, she was really into it today. And so that kind of leaves you wondering, man, should I even bother playing with something good or not? Because if people like it either way. But yeah, there's something about that extra effort when you're struggling. Maybe people mistake it for something special. Yeah.
Well, and I know with the violin, there's a sound post, a little dowel that connects the top piece of the violin to the bottom piece, and if you happen to knock it, or when the weather changes, the fit changes, and it changes how the fiddle vibrates. And most of the time, if it's a little bit whatever, you work through it. But sometimes, and it can happen very slowly, where you've been practicing, and then all of a sudden you're like, why am I working why am I using so much energy for this, for vibrato, or for this or that? Why does it sound, but it's kind of been so gradual that you notice, one day, and you come in and someone, Doug Lay over at Claire Gibbons Violins in Minneapolis is the guy that does it for me in town, and he'll knock it, and I'll be like, oh, well, okay. Yeah, that's why it was frustrating. But like you said, most people are not going to notice, especially when you're in the heat of a concert or something, and you just like, you don't have time to, you don't have time to bleed.
It's interesting what you were saying earlier about how you learn to make whatever you're playing work. Yeah, I mean, I remember, when I was younger and really only playing one instrument, it's so hard to switch. You get another horn in your hands, and it's like, what is this thing?
Right.
Yeah, the more instruments you play and like the more mouthpieces, I try, the better I am on whatever I play, but especially, my instruments. I was talking with a bassoonist friend once, and he was saying how he would like change reeds, after an intermission of a concert. Just partly, he started doing it to break in the reeds, but as he did it, he realized it was working different parts of his embouchure, all these fine little muscles around his mouth.
I can already tell you what Cassie's thinking.
I would do that if I had more than one reed.
I'm not doing that.
But and then he said he built up strength and so much more complexity there, that whatever he played, he just felt stronger. And I think that's true for horn too. You have to be careful not to do that too much, because then your chops can get confused. But there is something there.
Right.
I didn't want to say, I talked about the alloy of my instrument, but I didn't talk about my horn. This is a Lucas horn. It's made by Dan Bidekin. I don't know if you can read the little label there. There you go. Cool. Made in Memphis, Tennessee. It's a good Midwest horn. It's based in Chicago now. He made this horn for me. It's really beautiful. He's a very new horn maker. Only the last 5 years or so he's been making his own instruments. But he's just shot up like a rocket. This is a great horn. It projects really well. It's got a nice complex sound, and somehow it just fits our hall really well at the Ordway. Yeah, just a really good fit. I love it. And this is a Lasky 75G mouthpiece. It's kind of a standard Chicago style mouthpiece.
We are definitely nerding out now. Definitely.
I was just wondering, another nerdy question. What's your philosophy on like the coating of it? Because I know sometimes some horn players who have an uncoated, or like, the lacquered horn, and they'll have the green hand. Or is that something that all horn players suffer from?
Yeah, so the lacquer affects the sound minimally. The lacquer is technically just a layer of plastic, but same idea as the other kinds of metal coatings. It's so thin, ideally it won't make much of a difference. It can make a little, but cosmetically the lacquer will keep the shine on. My horn is not lacquered, as you can see. It's just a bit more rustic feel to it. I kind of like it.
It looks shiny to me though. Is it just because it's so well kept?
What? What's that?
I didn't realize it wasn't lacquered because the bell was so shiny. I thought
I have a fairly new instrument.
Okay.
So a decade from now, it's going to look different.
So going to that
back to the purpose of lacquer though is to protect the instrument from the elements. For example, if you live in a really humid environment, just the humidity can really wear down. It can cause corrosion on the metal, or it can. Different people's natural chemistry is more acidic than others. So we put our hand in the bell. If you have acidic sweat, that can eat through the instrument. I've actually worn holes through my bell and had to have them patched up because of the sweat.
I've heard of the same thing with the oboe keys. I guess I don't have very acidic fingers, because I've seen people, they're just like, the keys are black from the silver plating wears away. But I've read things where, like, back in the day, oboists would have their gallbladders removed to reduce the acidity in their. I don't know if that works, but
it's hard enough. It's hard enough being an oboist without having your gallbladder removed.
I got my gallbladder removed. It'll make things better. That's how intense musicians are. We'll be removing parts of our body to improve things.
And Jay, how long will you be able to play that horn? Do you like your whole life, or?
Yeah, I mean, potentially. It depends how much I play, how well I take care of it. But horns can, I mean, if a horn isn't played much, it can, last a century or more. If you play it a lot, maybe 50, if you play it every day on the job, 40 or 50 years is more like it. But kind of what happens is the most complex part of the horn is the valve system. In these little cylinders where the valves are, it's just such tight mechanics that will wear away. So finally, you don't have the compression you need or the seal. Air starts leaking, and then you have to get what we call a valve job, and that can really change the playing characteristics of a horn. Some people will sell it after they get a valve job because it changes the playing characteristics so much, or it just doesn't feel like it used to.
Right. It's kind of like getting a well, sometimes you'll get a new neck on a violin if the neck is sagging, or because it's not usually an original part of the instrument, or a new bass. It's called a new bass bar on the top of the instrument. That's interesting.
Kind of our worst fears. We'll get it worked on, and then it doesn't resemble what we want it to be. What do we do then?
The nice thing is that they don't cost as much as a violin does. So
true.
Something happens.
That is a nice thing. Right. Well, guys, we just talked for about a little over an hour.
Yeah.
This was fun. I know, nerds, but it's really good to see you guys and talk about music and instruments when we're not doing too much of it. Maybe next time we'll have a live cooking show. What do you think? Cooking and drinking show.
It could be like a competition or something.
We'll do it. Let's do it.
Make it like the British baking show, and I'll speak in British accents and stuff.
We could do that.
I've got a great recipe for BBJ.
But okay. We can each just make like our easiest 20-minute recipe. 15 minutes. I don't know. We'll figure it out. Well, let's hope that we get back to playing for everyone soon, and that I get to see you guys in person soon. Have a good Thanksgiving.
Thank you. You too.
I don't know who you're eating with, but mask up. Stay safe, and I'll see you guys soon.
All right.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Bye.